Yeah, so far I have been.
Today's the real day.
Is it-
Yesterday, Gemara spoke about Aiden that don't know how to sign. If you could make a stencil for them, it's not on that still. What's happening?
And I lit another candle.
I'm not sure why it's not going on. Why is it not going on?
Third candle. Because I wanted Motzi Shabbos already lit. So I lit Friday and Motzi Shabbos and last night.
I'm not sure why the screen is not working. What should we do?
Screens.
Okay, people have to come live.
On what time?
Want to do it on Zoom? Do it on
The
Zoom.
screen's on.
Yeah, it's good. The screen, yes, but here there's a screen for the Tzibur over here, and it's not recognizing. Right,
Oh,
one
no
more.
signal. It has nothing to do with this. It's just no signal.
Okay,
Oh.
okay,
Okay.
okay. Okay, so yesterday the subject was about if they don't know how to read and write. So I spoke about by get there's a kula for aguna kila barabonon. So they were lenient that if he can't get the other edim, so he could take these edim and he could read he reads it for them. He reads the get, and then the edim who don't know how to sign, so then he also make a stencil for them. Whatever all the other eitzes that the Gemara spoke about how to make that they should be able to sign. But then the Gemara said it's only by get, not by other contracts. Even get shechur also, not going to be made only by a aguna. And then there was an issue about the reading part. It means as far as the writing, the paskin, Rav Kana Nagdi, somebody Rav Kana gave Malkus to somebody that made this kind of a stencil for Edim by other stories. We don't paskin, we pass like a Shimon Gamliel that we're not going to be lenient by other stories for helping them write. But as far as helping them read, that the Gemara said a machlokus. That it could be that in Allah Rav Shimon Gamliel, as far as reading, that if they don't know how to read, we'll read it for them. But they're signing, they have to know how to sign. That was as far as we got yesterday. And we're up to Rav Yehuda. The last one on the line is Rav Yehuda. You have to leave. Oh, yesterday, I think that's why you missed it.
You kept going. Oh, you kept going.
Yeah, we went pretty far
Left at 12.
yesterday. We carried on like a whole hour.
So up to Rav Yehuda.
Mara Elazar.
Rav Yehuda.
Mhm.
We're up to Rav Yehuda over here. That's about 20 lines down.
Okay.
Rav Yehuda, in my edition, Rav Yehuda is the last words of the line. You see that? Rav Yehuda mitzvah kari b'chasim yitesem mit beis. So we just talked about if the Edim, when they're signed, do they have to know how to read it themselves or somebody can read it for them? So we just finished talking about that the machlokes. Some say by shar is also, just like by get, as far as reading, it can be make other stars also that others will read it. And some said no, that only by get are we make it, and other stars, the Edim themselves have to know how to read. So here goes the story. Rav Yehuda, mitzvah kari b'chasim. Rav Yehuda surely know how to read, but Rashi says he was old and it was hard for him to read. But when he had to sign, he would exert himself to read it, even though it was difficult for him, in order to be able to sign. Rav Yehuda mitzvah kari b'chasim. Rav Yehuda would pain himself in order to be able to read and then sign. He didn't rely on somebody else reading it for him, and he would sign. Rashi says if he was an aide, or if it was a psak bezdin that he had to sign the psak, so somebody else would read what the document said, and then he would sign it. No, I'm sorry, he would read it himself. He didn't rely on other people writing it, which we just said.
He did the whole thing. He did both the reading and the signing.
Right.
Could
Yeah.
be he was makpid on himself.
That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the subject. We're talking. That's the subject. Ula told Rav Yehuda lo tzrichas. You don't have to be so machmir to read it yourself. It's difficult for you. He's a great man. Moradar Yisrael. He's called the master of Eretz Yisrael. Moradar Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara someplace else talks about why he got such a big title. He's called the master of Eretz Yisrael. So he was a big rub, and they would read in front of him, and he would sign. It means he didn't sign himself. He didn't read himself. He didn't trouble to read it himself. Maybe also it was difficult for him. They would read it, and he would sign it. So he was. You just said it's machlokes before. We said machlokes about Rav Gamda Mishmei the Rav said that by reading, you don't have to be machmir by shar shabbos. It's also mutter to rely on somebody else that's reading it. So we see if Elazar was mekel, you don't have to be machmir. Rav Nachman also, Rav Nachman Torah Kamei Safri Daini v'Chasen. Rav Nachman, he also was the Rav, and he had a Sofer Dayanim. He had like the court scribe, Safri Daini, Safri Dayani. So they would read it, and he would sign it if there's something that he had to sign. So they would read the document, and he would sign it. So you see that they all viewed Rav Elazar and Rav Nachman. They were mekel that even by shar shabbos you don't have to read it yourself. Someone else could read it for you. So you too could be mekel. It more continues. The dafka of Nachman of Safri Dayani is Luemsa. Only such a kind of a combination of Nachman, who was the Dayan, and his scribes, because then they're scared of him. It means that they're not going to lie. They're not going to misread it because they have the official position of being the Sofer Dayanim, and he's the official of Nachman. Nachman was a very powerful person. But of Nachman of Safri Achrini or Safri Dayani, the Inish Achrin Allah, if it will be of Nachman with other scribes, not the official court scribe, or it will be the court scribe with somebody else, not Rav Nachman, so then you don't rely on it. You see that it's not just enough to say somebody else can read it, it has to be somebody that we know we can trust. So this is the case that Rav Nachman and Safri Dayani, then you could assume that they're reading it correctly, not if it's some people that are reading it. Just to point out, this comes up with Allah Maisa, that a lot of times when the Edom under the chuppah, that they signed the ksuba, they have the person mechubed with kriyas ksuba, they call somebody up to read the ksuba, and then the Edom sign it, and they didn't read it themselves, they just heard it reading it. Right? So that's not much the case over here. You're not to rely on that. So here so far the Gemara says that only if somebody, it's a shar shtaris, ksuba is not a get, it's a shar shtaris, and Adam Machokis if you have to read it yourself. And the Gemara seems to say you could rely on other people, but here the Gemara says if they're of Nachman Safri Dayani, it has to be a chashuv combination. That so the Gemara does bring down that some say that if he reads it B'tzibor, the one who reads it is a chobot with a kriyas ksuba, so he's reading in front of everybody, so he's scared to lie. He's not going to say something that it doesn't say.
That's very understandable.
Could be, yeah. Just the problem I think is that nowadays that the people don't know what the ksuba says. Well, that's the
But there's
Talmud
probably
Chacham.
one person.
Remember what it says.
But there's probably one person in the crowd that will know.
Yeah, but
Let's say it's in front of.
no, I'm talking about the Edom. They themselves, unless they're Tamid Chachamim. The Edom, they have to know. They read in Aramaic. Even if he reads it himself, he doesn't know what it means sometimes. So that's not a problem. How could you sign on the Ksuba if you don't know what it means? L'chorah, they should get Edom that know what it means. And then you can say that you can rely that whatever he's reading in public, he's saying the truth, and then they don't have to read it themselves. So you could rely on that probably. Okay. New story. Rav Papa. Next tomorrow, Rav Papa. Rav Papa, okay, but Asi Lakamei Shtar Parsa, the Ovid Bar Kol Shal Goyim. They said Kusim changed it to Goyim. When Rav Papa would get a Persian document, we can say by us in English, whatever, a different language, and it was made in the courts, the Goyish courts. We had before that it's a kosher. It says that Shtar Shtaris are kosher goyim, Kol Shtar Solom are kosher goyim is kosher because since they have an official position, they're a government appointed court, so you could assume that they're not lying. If it has something to do with making the halos like by a get, they can't do that. But document the deed of sale, things that does the proof alone, something that's only a proof, so you could trust them because they're not gonna make a lie.
You
So-
didn't read it. Did you?
I just said a Persian of Papa, when it would come before him, a Persian contract that was made in the Goyish courts.
Yeah.
He wanted to know what it says. He didn't know how to read this Persian. So he would
Two
get,
goyim that were not in front of each other.
yes, he would take two goyim out of the street, call from the street, two Persians come in, and he would tell them, will you stay outside? And he tells one of them,
Dafka not.
not yeah, that
So they can't make up.
they shouldn't say the same thing that the first one said. We want to make sure that we're getting the right translation.
I
So we call two translators, but it said, and not in front of each other. And we asked them to translate it. It says Masech Fituma. Masech Fituma means that they're just talking according to their innocence. Means that they don't know that they're going to be used as a official document, that they're going to be able, whatever it says in the contract. I don't know how you do that exactly. He does tell them, I don't know how to read Persian, but they have to realize, they have to think at least, they shouldn't realize that they're going to be used as evidence, that somebody's going to collect money because of their words. You can't use them in
Can
English.
you tell me what this says?
And you have to say something like, I'm studying Persian or something like that. I'd like to read, but not that they should know that they're in a court
But
and
they're reading it in person, aren't they? Or they're translating.
They're translating from Persian into the language that they knew.
Okay.
And they're told that they're not being used as, we're not relying on them for their evidence, for their testimony or their reading. We just want to know what it says, but not that it's going to be used in court. That's what it sounds like. That only Messiah Lefitumo, that he's talking according to his innocence, which is not so easy to get the contract translated, and they shouldn't realize that it's necessary
But
for.
they don't say explicitly, this is not, you're not,
They could say explicitly.
they could?
Why not?
We're not using this as, we're not using your testimony. This is not using what you tell me as testimony.
Yeah, we just want to, yeah.
Okay,
But it doesn't say how you do it. It just says that you have to get them to talk according to their innocence
yeah.
without realizing that they're being used as proof in order to be able to get the translation. So you get two translators, to be able to translate the document. And then he has the document. It was a Goyish contract, and it was also signed by Goyim. And the Gemara says before that it's kosher because we assume that they're not gonna make a lie since it's an official court. And he would even collect from Mishubadim also. So here's a problem. This word says it might be Mishabdi. There are a girsa out of the many girsos. Here's a girsa that says B'nei Chorin, that Nafka B'nei Chorin. And the Tosfos written on the bottom, he has the girsa B'nei Chorin. That's only from B'nei Chorin means the state that the person in question has. But if he had sold it, it doesn't carry a lien. There's no lien on it. But our girsa does say Mem Mishabdi. Most girsos have Mem Mishabdi. Rashi had Mem Mishabdi. And this causes a problem because the Gemara on Daf Yud Aleph, it said a similar Gemara. It spoke about a Persian contract. Courts, the court shall go over there says Dafka B'nei Chorin. And the Gemara over there said, how come only B'nei Chorin? Because it has no call. Because only even if it was given over in front of Jewish Adim, but the ones who sign it are the one who make the noise and not the noise, better word to say that. They're the ones who get the
publication.
To publicize it, and therefore Mishubadim is only going to hold the lien on something that the buyers would be able to be aware of. They know that there's a lien on this thing, but if there's no call, they have no way of knowing that there's a lien on this person's property. So that's the kasha Rashi asks. That Gemara says even Mishubadim, and over there it says only from B'nei Chorin. So Rashi, in order to answer the kasha, he says Gemara is talking about our coast, the courts, and that Gemara, even though it sounds like it's talking about our coast and the whole sugi over there, that Gemara Rashi says it's talking about a diotos, regular plain goyim, layman. So over there, you only can collect from our coast. You only can collect from a coast. That is a goyish court, even though everything's in a foreign language. The news is going to get out, and you even could collect Shabbatim. That's the Chiddush of Rashi to answer this contradiction between our Gemara and the Gemara and Daf Yud Aleph. The Gemara continues. Amar Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi said, "Amali Rav Huna bar Nosson. Nosson told me, Achi Amar Ameiman." So again, Rav Huna bar Nosson told Rav Ashi that Ameiman said the following: "My shtar pasod the Chasimi Alei Sadi Yisrael Magbina Beimen Mishabli." A Persian contract means, as far as we're concerned, English, whatever it is, a different language contract that is signed by Jews. Here you have Jewish signatures. Till now we spoke about the Persian contract had Persian signatures, either Akos or a layman. Now we're talking about that Jews signed on this foreign document. You could collect from Mishubadim, even if it wasn't official court. There was a regular different language, a foreign language that Jews signed on it. It's a regular contract, and like any kind of Jewish contract, you can collect from Mishubadim. So too, you can collect from lien property also. The more has a conscience that we had earlier that usually a Persian contract has a lot of problems. These Jews, they know how to read Persian. They signed on a contract that they don't know how to read. Yes, but they know Persian. The ones who signed on the contract have to have known. It comes out, just to point out that more before, a couple of lines ago, said there's another way to find out what it says. You ask two goyim to translate, not in each other's presence. Is that enough over here also? Over here it's talking about that you had a signed contract by goyim, and you want to know what it says. So you ask two goyim to translate it, not in each other's presence, and you can assume that's what it says. Is that enough also to be able to sign the contract? Again, before a few lines ago, the one was talking about that you got a signed contract, signed by goyim, and everything's goyish and foreign language. So you bring in two translators to translate it. That's good. I'm asking a question. Could you also do that in order to sign the contract? You're the aide. You're the Jewish aide. They ask you, please sign the contract. You don't know what it says. You don't know how to read Chinese. So is it also enough to get two Chinamen to translate it in order that I'm going to sign the contract. I don't know what it says.
Yeah,
So the Gemara before didn't say so. The Gemara before said it's talking about it was a signed contract, Chinese with Chinaman signed on it, and just that it's a court, so you could trust that it's true. And now you're going to collect with it because you know what the contract says. Here, the question is, how could the Jewish Eidim sign on a contract that they don't know what it says? So the Gemara just answers with the Yadi. The Gemara says, if they know Persian, if they know Chinese, they have to know it themselves. The Gemara alone, the simple Gemara will be mashma that you're not allowed to sign in a contract only if you know what it says. Not because the Messiah Chitom is not enough. But it could be in Shulchan Aruch, it says differently, just pointing out that you read the Gemara just says b'diyadi. How did he sign on a foreign language? If you know the foreign language. The Gemara continues. Whenever you make a contract, it has to be on a kind of a paper that you're not able to forge. You can't erase it and write it again. And the Jews are makpid to make contracts on such kind of paper that if it gets erased, it's noticeable that the erasure and it's not forgeable. And the Goyim weren't usually makpid on that. I don't know how come the Goyim aren't they smart enough to know that you could forge a contract to use such kind of paper that you could erase. I don't know. But the Gemara says that you have to have a writing that's not possible to forge, and it's not there. But like on the regular Goyish contracts, you don't have that. The answer is b'dafitzon that they did, that the cloth was worked out with fotzim, the walnuts, and that makes that you should not be able to forge it. If somebody's going to erase it, it's going to be noticeable that it's darker. And enechanam, it only is a kosher that had these conditions of a kosher contract. When we had all this in Nafir that in a contract you have to have that you summarize whatever the contents of the star, you have to summarize it in the last line. You have to chazer over the whole thing. Like it says, a long contract, then it says in the bottom, and Nuvain borrowed from Shimon $100 and this there. So you have to summarize it, and usually the guys don't do that. You have to learn the sugya to say why you have to do that. Why did the Jews say you have to do that? But for whatever reason, you have to do it again on the bottom line. And the Goyish contracts don't usually have that, so it's not a kosher contract. But the Mahadir, yes, the case is that they did it. They did everything according to the Jew. Goyish contract, the whole Lashon kosher that you could sign, that the contract could be any language. We know that already, that a contract could be any language. Tanina, we have a Mishnah that says, get your kosher ivris for Eid of Yavanis, Yavanis for Eid of Ivris, kosher, that if the get is written in, or get maybe means any kind of contract, but here the Gemara is going to say, you might think dafka get. So we'll say get, that means divorce contract, the divorce bill. You might think, it says here that if it's written in Hebrew and it was signed with English, I'll say English, Greek, English signatures, that the Eidim, they signed in English. That's their signature. They could sign, we would think they would sign in Hebrew. If the whole get is written in Hebrew, that they should also sign in Hebrew. But they signed it in English, or the opposite. Yavanis Veda Vivris, that the get was written in English and the Eidim signed in a Hebrew signature. Kosher. So it says that any language is good. So what's the chiddush that you could write a document in a different language? You could have Persian document and the Eidim are signed in Hebrew, even no difference. The answer is, you might think the dafka begitin do we machshir different languages, but maybe other contracts mark the dafka to have Hebrew, or at least the same uniform language of this content of the text and the signatures. Kamash malan that even other documents is no. You also can have that. You can have other languages. You even can have two languages that the signatures can be in a different language. So if the Eidim sign, sometimes people are marked with the sign in Hebrew. How do you sign in Hebrew? But it really halachically you can sign in English signature also. That's also a kosher signature, even though the document is written in Hebrew.
they even have to know the language of what's.
The subpart says they have to know what it says. They have to know what it says. The Shulchan Aruch might say that if they have to know, they surely have to know the contents of what they're writing, context of what they're writing. They have to know how to read it if it's a different language. So in the Gemara it says b'diyadi, only if they know the language. The Shulchan Aruch I think does say that if the thing about somebody else reading it for them also might be good, even though the Gemara is not so much like that. But I didn't see the sources that it's some say that it's also kosher to sign on a contract that other people read for you. Again, how did the Gemara go? To sign on a contract of a different language with the goyim and stuff like that.
So you have to be makbid the Eidim or the Chassan should know what it says in the Ksuba.
I think so. Not because of our Gemara. That's not
They know what this
if
says.
they don't, yeah, now our Gemara's talking about they know how to read it, but they have to know what is the Ksuba all about. If they think that it's a marriage contract, like that this is how we make the marriage. This is a financial contract that the husband's obligating himself, if he dies or if he divorces. that he should be hired a certain amount of money. So they
It's
have to know.
also what is the obligation during marriage.
That doesn't say too much. Yeah,
Doesn't say,
it doesn't say. All the halachas of Suba doesn't say. Like it said, that's
But he's
very.
gonna work and support his wife.
Yeah, but there are many things that it doesn't say.
Ksuba's in Aramaic.
The Ksuba nowadays is in Aramaic. The reason why it's in Aramaic is everyone should understand it.
So there's no such
It's
thing as
very,
a-
very strange.
Is there such a thing
because
as it? Yeah. it's
the
very-
reason why they made it that should be in Aramaic is that everyone should know what it's talking about. It shouldn't be complicated Hebrew. It should be like the vernacular, what everybody speaks. But now it came the opposite. That they write it in Aramaic and only have to be a big Talmud Chacham to know what all these Aramaic things are saying in any kind of contract nowadays.
Okay, 2 points. One is, if they're saying it in public, then that helps because there's less, the one who's reading it, there's less chance that he'll be
Lying.
lying. But in a lot of chasanas, when he's reading it, everybody's talking. So
Wait.
then there is no,
There's nobody
there's
thinks
no
that's.
kahal,
There's no-
unless it's the people
Okay,
under
it
the
could
chuppah,
be.
maybe they're not.
And you could ask that all the people they don't even know what he's talking about. He could read a telephone book. They
And
also,
also today,
in
one
Aramaic.
more thing, it's taped. People are
Ah.
scared to fly when it's taped.
Oh,
It's
it's
always
taped.
video. It's always,
It's
every
taped.
wedding is video.
Nowadays, okay, and my second question is there such a thing as a Hebrew name in Aramaic?
It's
Everybody's name?
Hebrew name in Aramaic.
Yeah,
Meaning?
today, everyone's afraid.
It's, this document is in Aramaic and people are signing it in Hebrew.
So that's what the Gemara says. It's okay
It's okay, but is there such a thing as signing a name in Aramaic?
in English.
Is there an Aramaic version of?
Yes or no, but it doesn't say that. It talks about Japan. It talks about Greek. It talks about Greek. That the mamish doing a different alphabet. They're doing like we would say we're doing in
Oh,
English.
a different alphabet.
Yeah,
So like,
Yeah.
like Yehudim with a Y.
yeah, right. Or,
Still be
or Judah also. Whatever his name is. If his name is, but he can write it in a foreign language in script. The Rambam Pirsha Mishnais, you will see. I was a kid. I was so impressed that looking at the Pirsha Mishnais, the Rambam, it has the alphabet of English. He wants to write. He gives an example of writing the Adam signing it.
Rambam?
The Rambam, yeah. They wrote the English to show.
Letters?
Yeah, Julius, something like that.
Uh-huh.
If you're interested in seeing, I'll show you afterwards. I remember I was very impressed.
By the way, the dinner Messiah who Thomas, two people, it's not enough one person.
That's interesting. Here it says also not. The question is here is some kind of more of a test. It's not much testimony. They're going. So here, in order to compare them, we have to have two. That's what Ram's asking. Besides having Mashiach L'Titumo, you also have to have two. That's a lot of precaution. That's interesting. Usually, Mashiach L'Titumo, if we trust it, we trust the one also. Here you have to have two. Goyim that are.
So maybe it's better, so it's worse.
Doesn't talk about business. You're signing your aid. You're signing a contract.
Maybe for a country. I hear. Okay.
So, okay, that's the end of that sugya. And it was mostly about signing something that you don't know how to read. How did it come out? That the Gemara said, Machlokis, by get, for sure you could, if that person doesn't know how to read, the get, for sure it says that you could read it for him. And Rav Shimon Gamliel said, Dafka by get, not by the documents. There's Machlokis. Everyone agreed to him as far as writing to help him to write his name with a stencil or something like that. That's only by get. Other Shabbos we don't do that. And it says even Rav Kana gave somebody Malchus for doing such a thing, for signing anything with a stencil. But the whole sugi comes in about reading, that by get, we also read it for the Eidim if they don't know how to read. And Rav Shimon Gamliel says Dafka by get, not other contracts. Over there's a Machlokis. If you have to be machmir like Rav Shimon Gamliel, maybe other contracts you could read it also. And even though Avidu was machmir, that's where he started today. Avidu himself was machmir. He was old. He wasn't able to read so easily, but he was machmir. But then the Gemara told him you don't have to. Rabbi Lazar does it. Rav Nachman does it. But the Gemara said only Rav Nachman because Rav Nachman suffered the dying. It has to be that you could trust it. Otherwise,
Closer to Rav Nachman was closer to Rav Yehuda.
closer meaning
He had some kapadim.
he had
He was
some.
makpid that they had to be.
Rav Yehuda himself read it himself. They say you don't have to. The same way Rabbi Lazar and Rav Nachman. Rabbi Lazar does says that they would. Rabbi Lazar more
Rav
Darish Rav Lazar.
Nachman, though, make sure that they were.
Suffered the dining, that they were his sofa,
So I'm saying that's closer to him.
closer to you. Okay, but the Gemara is saying that you could rely on that. It seems that you can rely on people that are reading it for you. And then the Gemara has talked about how to verify what the writing is if you don't know how to read Persian or something like that. So it says that you could verify it with two gaim zeshlo b'fnei zeh Mashiach l'fitumo. And here it says if you had Jewish signatures on this Persian contract, it's good. And the chiddush over here is going to be, they have to know how to read it, the Gemara says. Maybe the postscript will say it's good enough also if somebody else reads it, the same way we said that you can get somebody else to read it. And the fact that it's a different language might be considered a chiddush, but it is true that not only by gitin, even by shar shtos, you could have a foreign language, even if the text is one language and the signature is a different language, is also good. Okay, back to gitin.
Today you can write it in English and write it Citrin.
Yes, yes. The reason why they write it in Aramaic is that it should be understood.
It could be today the reason why they don't write in English is because they're afraid they're not going to translate. Right?
No, again, no, it's not like in Kriya Shema. It's just you have to know what he's talking about. But the only reason they don't change it is, I think, for sure, because of reforms. That since the reform made changes, so we made no more changes. But really, we would make the change l'chora. We should make it in English and make it whatever country, whatever Hebrew, whatever you understand.
Whatever country.
Yeah, make it that it should be understandable in simple English, not like the contracts that you don't know what they're talking about.
When Rav Yaakov moved to Monsey, he asked him to do salvation. He had to do a lot of research on how to spell Monsey correctly. So he had to go back 100 years to see
How to spell it in Hebrew. You say write it in English, and then you'll be okay. Then you write it in English. Why do they write it in Hebrew still, especially Aramaic? Aramaic is really interesting because there's no mitzvah to write in Aramaic. It's only because they wanted to write it in the vernacular, that it should be simple. And now it becomes the most complicated to write in Aramaic.
They want to make sure the Masada Kiddushin
Is it Talmud Chacham? We should.
Otherwise, if everything's in English, they'll get any yokel to do.
Okay. New Gemara. Amar Shmuel. We're still talking about writing. The writing. It goes back maybe into the ink. We spoke about in the Mishnah about the ink. It should be a good ink. Here it goes. Interesting. Mamish interesting Gemara. Amar Shmuel. He gave her a blank piece of paper and he said, "Here's your divorce." She looks at it, a blank piece of paper, and a funny joke. Megureshes. So Megureshes means, yeah, okay, well, hold on.
You're saying
Don't go any
why is it
further.
a joke?
So, and it's a joke.
Halak means it's empty.
Empty, a blank piece of paper. So basically, so the Gemara is going to talk about invisible ink. That's going to be the symbol of invisible ink over here.
The law is that
She's divorced. Now, divorce here doesn't mean that she's definitely divorced. She shouldn't go around marrying anybody else. But it's a chashich megureshes. We're worried maybe. Maybe he wrote with the kind of ink that's not so noticeable on the cloth, which is interesting because later on, before we said en memilin agabe memilin, means if you use a parchment which has been worked out with gold nuts and you use the ink, which is the gold nut juice, so it's not so noticeable on it. That's what the Gemara said before. And here the Gemara says that it would be considered a ksav. The Gemara is going to continue. We have to continue still, but so far it sounds like that would be considered enough of a writing that's kosher. Meisvei, kasha, that it's not good. You're not koshish for such a kind of a thing. If he gave her a get, and it seems that she didn't read it, she saw that we see that there's writing on it, but she didn't bother reading it. She threw it into the yam. She threw it into the fire. Anything else that she took it, she received it, and she threw it into the yam, to the fire, to anything which destroys it, incinerated, whatever it is. And then he says, it wasn't really a get, I was just making a joke, I wasn't really a get. Some kind of a different contract. But shtar pasim and shtar mana, shtar mana means, I don't know why the Gemara says these examples. What does Rashi say about a shtar pasim? I didn't even look into it because it isn't so much the subject over here. Rashi says shtar pasim means that he wrote a fake contract to somebody in order that he should look like he has money. That somebody wants to show off that he's rich. For some reason, he has to show that he's rich. Maybe he's making a shidduch or something like that. So you get somebody to write him IOU, a contract that I owe you money for whatever, $1 million. So he says, you see, people owe me $1 million. But it's not meant to use. Or shtar mana, that that somebody wrote a contract that I owe money, and he didn't really use it. He's just holding on to it. Maybe he's going to need it. A case where I don't know why people will do this, that the Loba gave to the Malva a contract that I owe you money, I owe you $1,000. He didn't really borrow yet. But I don't know why the Gemara uses these examples. He just wanted to make it that I didn't give you anything. Not that the woman could say, okay, you gave me something a deed of sale, so give me the house. But he said, I gave you nothing. I gave you a garnish. But it wasn't a get. Again, he gave her a piece of paper that had writing on it, and he told her that it's a get. She took it, she threw it into the fire, and she thinks that she's divorced because he told her that it's a get. And then he says it wasn't a get. Migureshes, she's divorced. And here it says she's divorced Lagamri. We trusted it. Since he gave her a get, we trust that it's a get, and she's allowed to get married. The low and we don't trust him that he should ask her and say that it wasn't a get. And the Gemara thinks that this is a kasha on Shmuel. Shmuel said that if he gave her a blank paper, also a chash that it's a get. And the Gemara sees in this brisa that you're not choshesh for a blank paper. Only if there's writing, then he can talk about what did it say on it, and then we're going to be choshesh that it's a get. We don't trust him that it wasn't a get. It's mashma. I don't see the mashmos too much. If Rashi says that it should have said a bigger chiddush. If you say that it's a get, even if it was a blank paper, then how come it says a case where there was writing and he says that it wasn't a get, it was something else, some other kind of writing? Why doesn't it say a bigger chiddush that even if it's blank? So the Gemara sees it as a kasha on Shmuel. Shmuel says that a blank piece of paper will chosh that as a get, that we can't read so much, that it's not so visible, and this Bryce is mashma that you're not choshesh for that. Only if it's a writing, then you say that, and he says it was a get, then it was a get. And even though it's lost now, it's in the fire. But if it will be a blank piece of paper, we're not choshesh that it's writing. The Gemara answers, Ki kama Shmuel, but kinon le b'maya denora. Shmuel only means if you check it, and whatever, like this invisible ink, there's a way to put something on that will make it become visible. I don't know what they do nowadays with invisible ink, whatever they have. They had some kind of a system then also that you pour something on top and then it'll make the writing come out. Taisha says it means rimon juice, whatever the point would be, that they put whatever they have, whatever system they had of making it visible. So if you check it now and you see that it's visible, so then it's a get. If it shows the writing, like polit means that it exudes, it gives out the writing, brings out the writing, then it's a get. That's a shmuel man. And if it didn't, then of course it's nothing. But the Gemara still has a problem with that. My hobby, I should do the polit. Even if you put on this
Rimon juice.
And now it shows the writing, but at the time that he gave it to her, it was invisible. So it's partial to the Gemara that if someone gave invisible ink, and right now it's invisible, even if you could do something to make it visible, it's not a get. It has to be at the time that he gave it to her that it was visible. So that's the most conscious. Even if you now check and it was invisible ink that now became visible, but at the time that he gave it to her, maybe it was not visible. It was not visible.
It sounds like you can read it.
Yeah, now you could. Now, once you put on the Rimon juice, you could read it. But that's only happened now. The Gemara is asking. The Gemara says,
my hobby is before that, though.
What?
Isn't the my hobby before that?
Before what?
The chip poly, my hobby. What does that mean?
What's the difference if it shows the ink now? Hashtu the poly, it does happen now. And the time that he gave it to her.
Now at the end. Hashtu
means now. Now that we take it, that we check it out, we bring on this
I see implying back then we didn't see it.
Yeah, so he gave her a blank piece of paper that's invisible, even though it has invisible ink that really could become visible, but at the time he gave it to her, it was invisible.
Why is it a good thing?
So surely not a get. The answer is Shmuel Nam Yechashin Kama. Shmuel says we're not sure. It means that the case, it seems that this invisible ink, when you write with it, it does show. And then probably that's how the kids do it also. I don't know what the visible ink that they sell in the store. That when you write with it, it's visible. Then in a couple of minutes it fades. And then you can make it visible again. So the question, so now
when she got it,
she looks at it, it could be at the time that they gave it to her, it still was visible. And then it faded. And now we want to be able to bring it back. So then we'll use this Rimon juice to be
Today
able
it
to bring
wouldn't
it back.
work because the visible ink only stays 4 minutes and takes to write a get 1 in 4 minutes. So you wouldn't
So this was advanced invisible ink. They went to the army to get some kind of a more advanced invisible ink. So that's what they had in those days. So that's the Gemara's issue about this invisible ink. That when he gave it to her, we didn't see what happened. It could be that it was writing over there, and then it faded, then it got absorbed and it's invisible. And she looks at it like a blank piece of paper. So we take it to the laboratory and we check it out if it becomes visible. If it does, then there's a chash that it was visible at the time that he gave it to her also. If we see now that there's nothing there, so there's nothing there, then we say that she's not divorced. But if we see that there was some invisible link, and the question is only if it was visible at the time, then it'll be a suffix, and she's choshesh that she was divorced, but she can't get married. We don't know, but she's choshesh that she was divorced. I guess if he's a Kohen, whatever the case might be, that she might be divorced. There's a big problem on this whole Gemara that we have to just point out that the Eidim Mesira, you have to have Eidim Mesira also. Besides the husband giving the get, you also have to have Eidim that see the giving over of the get, and they're supposed to read it also. So that's like a stick on the whole Gemara. What's it talking about? Did the Eidim see it? The Eidim didn't see it. If they saw it, then they saw that it's visible, so they saw that he gave over a visible get. If they saw that it's invisible, so it's invisible. What's the case of the Gemara that you don't know what happened at the time of the Mesira? That's a problem in the Gemara, and
We passed the Eidim Mesira, Captain.
I don't know, but I think you have to have Eidim Mesira, right?
No, and the Eidim, I think, if I remember correctly, the Eidim today, they don't read the get. They just read, the Eidim just see them giving over the get.
I'm sure they didn't read the get.
The Eidim Mesira?
I'm sure. Why am I sure? Because I'm sure, like there are suggestions talked about, you have to have the Eidim Mesira reading the get. We'll see in a second.
In my case, the guys that wrote this
Yeah.
get with the Eidim, and they walked from there and they gave it to her.
The Eidim Chasima and Eidim Mesira. You gave it.
No, I didn't give it. She didn't want to see it.
So a shliach. You made them a shliach.
2 blocks away from.
You made them a shliach.
So I made them a shliach. They went over. They called me up. They said they gave it.
They said the funny naftam. I guess so. Or they know this. Anachnu achosman. They were the ones. We were the ones.
If you get.
Some shit we get.
They did everything.
So, okay. Now, so I just mentioned it. I just mentioned a problem. I mentioned a problem over here that what's the one talking about? They didn't have to see what they're giving over. That is giving it over. Okay. The more continues.
And now maybe I have an answer. They looked at it. The guy's holding it now, and maybe in the meantime, guy changed.
But the more talks about that, we don't know if it has writing or not. As if we don't know if there's invisible ink or not. The Gemara says, it sounds like, okay, I'm just pointing out the problem. The Gemara doesn't talk about it. The Gemara doesn't talk about the Eidim Mesira. The Gemara talks about the husband gave the get to the wife, and she looks at it, it's a blank piece of paper. So we say, take it to the laboratory and figure out if it has invisible ink. If it does, there'll be a suffix with the If it doesn't come out, says nothing, it's a blank piece of paper. It doesn't made a trick on you. You're not divorced. New Gemara. Amar Ravina, Amali Amemar. Hachi Amar Merema, Mishmei de Ravdimi. So again, Amemar told Ravina in the name of Merema, in the name of Ravdimi. So Ravdimi is the one who says this. Honey betrayed the Yav Gita Kamayu. He talks about the Eidim Mesira. The 2 people that they give the get in front of them, the Eidim Mesira, Srichi Lemakaria. They have to read the get. They have to read the get before he gives it over. They have to read the get to see what he's giving over. That doesn't fit with the Gemara before. That's a problem. Meisvei kasha from a brisa. I think it's a brisa, Mishnah. I don't know. I raise a gitech when I talk to zeraktu liyam or we had it a few minutes ago. He gave her a get and she didn't read it. She just took it and threw it into the yam, to the fire, to any kind of destructive thing. Because of Amar Shtar Pasimu Shtar Manu Mugareshes for local Amenu. So it says that over there. Question: what did it say? She says that she didn't read it. She just took the get. She saw some writing over there. She threw it into the fire. And then the husband says it wasn't really a get. It was something else. So, and it says that Yechoshish, that she is, you assume that she is Mugureshes and we don't trust him to make her usher and say that she was not Mugureshes. But if you say that they have to read it, so what's the question? There's no question. They have to read it. You bring in the Eidim Mesira issue. It sounds like we're just talking about Eidim Mesira. They don't know what, they're not standing there. They don't know what it says. And then she assumed that's a get. Then he says, no, it wasn't a get. But if the Eidim Mesira have to read it, if you say that they have to read it, after they read it, could he say that it wasn't a get? They read it. They said that it's a get. You can't make up a story. The case is talking about that after they read it, they did read it. But after they read it, he put it into his pocket and he took it out. So the question is, if he took out the same thing,
so this will answer all the Gemaras.
So they might have switched it. So what are you going to say? Let's just finish this. That the case is that after they read it, he put it in beyode. Beyode would mean like a sleeve or something like that. He put it into a sleeve and he took it out. It might be Choshesh that he switched it and he gave her a different piece of paper. And that's what he said, I tricked you. And I did the sly hand, and I gave it to the Eidim, and then I took it in my sleeve, took it out, that we took a different piece of paper. Kamashma, you're not choshesh for that, then she's Mugureshes. Now, Avrohom says, go back to the other Gemara about the blank piece of paper. What are you going to say?
He switched, he
All
put it
to
in
the
the
same
pocket,
case.
and
That they read a get, then he put it into his pocket, took it and gave her a blank paper. The question is about a blank paper, if what?
if it was the get that he stick in the pocket, or it was different paper. Beautiful answer, no?
But it's also not so simple because it means that they saw there's writing over there. You're not choshesh that he switched it. So then there's no question about the Meimilan. They know that there was, if you're not choshesh that he switched it,
Yes.
so that's all, not choshesh that he switched it.
But
Here
maybe
you
if
see-
they
here you see
over
that-
here you see there's
You see that
different.
there's a blank paper. So you want to know that they read it, and then the question is from the time that they read it until they gave it over, did the ink fade or not? Okay, I guess that's going to be the cheshbon. We're up to 4 lines from the bottom. Who gavra the zarak lagita ledevisur lebeini dani. A man threw a get to his wife amongst the barrels. There was a place that was there in the cellar, whatever, and he threw a get. He threw a piece of paper, and he said, "I raised a gitin," and I guess the Edom is here over there, and I guess also what?
It's her barrel. It's her storage room.
I guess within the Alalam, whatever case would have been that if it was a get, so it'll be a good get. The question only is shtakach mezuzah. They went around looking amongst the barrels. They found a mezuzah. So it sounds like that.
Which
That's
is the word barrels.
Dani,
Uh-huh.
and it sounds like they found the mezuzah. So it sounds the whole thing's a joke.
Yeah.
That he said it's a get, really it's a mezuzah. He just wanted to make fun of her or get her scared. So that's the question always with the Eidim Masira. You have to always ask a kasha, what happened to the Eidim Masira? So what's going to be the answer again? That they read the get and then he put it into a sleeve and took it out and then he threw it and then he found a mezuzah. So it sounds like
Nice switch.
this is only a mezuzah. So that's what he says. It's only a mezuzah. Now the question is, maybe not. Maybe it's real. Maybe really he threw her a get and the mezuzah also happened to be there. Amar Rav Nachman, mezuzah beini dani lo shchicha. You don't usually have mezuzah around the barrels. So this must have been what he threw. And now he didn't throw a get at all. So there's no get. There's only if you found one mezuzah. But if you found a couple of mezuzahs, Aval Beis v'Gimel, if you found a couple of mezuzahs over there, so you see there were mezuzahs around there. So then you choshesh that the mezuzah was there, and he didn't throw the mezuzah, he threw a get,
And you just can't find it.
and you can't find it. Why can't you find it? Look.
Yeah.
The name, the Gita, maybe the mice took away the get. So it depends on the circumstance. Nowadays, we would say that there's no shad in the place, the regular place, there's no mice. There's no mice. So find it. If you don't find it, that means that that he threw a mezuzah. So according to the circumstances, they said that there's a chash that the get was taken away, and it depends. That it's a mezuzah that he threw. So if there's no other mezuzah, only one mezuzah, what's a mezuzah doing here? It must be that he's the one who threw it. But there are a couple of mezuzahs, so you see that the mezuzahs over there. So it could be that he did throw a get. He says he threw a get. And where is it? I don't know. But I throw a get, and it's when she's divorced. So then you will be choshesh that he divorced her. New story. A man went to the shul, I guess with his wife also. Shokal Sefer Torah, Yavla. He took Sefer Torah out of the Aron Kodesh. He gave it to his wife, and he said, "Ramula Hagita. Here's your get." So she looks at him. What I say for Torah, I have to do it again. I'm Rav Yosef. My nechesh. There's no divorce. What side is there that there's a divorce? So what would you say?
Says the Pasha of.
Because it says the kasha of get. So the Gemara is going to say that possibility, but it doesn't even say that. This is
Right.
it says because of let's say Yusuf Nasan V'Yoda. So the Gemara is going to say that, but the Gemara says maybe there's some invisible link on the Sefer Torah. Maybe before Shachris he came into the shul and he wrote to get an invisible link on the Sefer Torah.
But yeah, I can make the shayla stronger. You have Eide Chasima. You ask him where's the Eide Chasima.
So we have a Belazar that says, I didn't think of the question, but maybe a Belazar holds you don't have to have Eidei Chasim. If it goes according to him. I don't know. Maybe that's an answer. If you choshesh for the invisible link, we said meimilin means the gall juice, the gall nut juice. But the Sefer Torah is also written with meimilin, and meimilin, agabe meimilin is not considered a writing. I don't know how to switch with the Gemara before.
You're saying the Torah is written.
The Torah is written there. The parchment is worked out with walnuts. That's how they work out the Sefer Torah. Nowadays, they use different method of sid, but in those days,
Before they write it.
you're right. The parchment is tanning. whatever they use in order to work out the parchment is called a futzim, walnuts. So now if you're going to use the gall nut juice as an ink, so it's not considered a writing. Which goes back to Shmuel. Shmuel said Yechoshesh about that even if it's not, even if it was Meimilin, it talks about before that maybe it depends what kind of parchment it's using. Also, maybe Meimilin is before the Gemara said that Meimilin is going to be considered a writing if it's written on regular paper. If it's on Meimilin, then it's not considered a writing. So I'm not sure what Shmuel means before that Yechoshesh that it was invisible ink, which is able to become reappear. So I'm not organized. I don't get the whole sugya. That here Shmuel says you are choshish that if he gave it at the time he gave it to her, it was visible. It'll be a get, even if later on it disappeared. Go to a laboratory and make a test. Here the Gemara doesn't say go to make a test. The Gemara says it wouldn't be considered writing. The Gemara doesn't say take this and maybe Shmuel says that it's a get. So I'm not clear in the difference between the Gemara before Shmuel and this bottom line. The bottom line here says that it's nothing, and Shmuel said you have to make a test. That maybe it was writing at the time that he gave it to her. So I didn't get a shot. I didn't figure out how this Gemara says that you're not choshish for invisible ink, and Shmuel said you are choshish. Maybe it's a simple test. Maybe Rashi says something that I didn't see, but I'm just pointing out this Gemara says no problem. You're not choshish for invisible ink on the Sefer Torah.
Isn't the meaning that's so that you can't forge something?
That's when you do the parchment with that. That's what you do in order that the parchment should not be forgeable. Now, what kind of ink did you use? If you use regular Dio or something like that, regular ink, so that's good. That's the way to write it. But it's not forgeable. If you're going to erase the, it's good. But
So
now
how does my question is not our sugi, but with the Sefer Torah, if there's a mistake, how can you fix it?
what's the problem?
Because you used memilin, so then you won't be able to, like, if there's a.
You'll see that it was redone.
Oh, you'll see that it was redone and made kosher. That's what you're
Right.
saying.
Well, you'll see that it's blackish
But
over there.
that's why it's different than a document. It doesn't matter that you.
Because the document, the document, we see that it was something that was written over. So, that you wrote $1 million, only was $1,000.
You're saying that it was made kosher. Okay.
So that wouldn't be a problem. You're not choshesh for invisible ink. I'm not sure how it fits with the Gemara before. Even from Krisus, this block, you might think like Moshe said that it says in the Sefer Torah, the Nasan will say the Krisus will Nasan biyada. Maybe that'll be the get. The first Gemara goes like a little bit left field. Albina of Akasav Allah Lishma, Valeka, that it wasn't Lishma, even if it was written a get in the Sefer Torah, the Nusach of the Sefer Torah, but it wasn't made for her, it was made for Sefer Torah. Now maybe you'll be choshesh really wild that this husband, he has a long time ago, he was choshesh, he's going to need a get, and he told the sofer to write the Sefer Torah with his wife in mind. Maybe he proceeded and he gave money to the sofer in the beginning when he wrote the Sefer Torah that he should write these words, he should write it for his wife. The whole thing doesn't make sense. But lucky you have to have his name, her name, the name of the city, her city. Yeah, it's not a good get. So there's no problem. To get Sefer Torah, surely not a get. The Gemara says, what's the chiddush in the whole thing? Of course, there's no get over here. You have Yosef, Mike, and Mashmalan, Shein Me'milan, or Gabi Me'milan. The only chiddush of Yosef spoke out the whole story. This guy came with him. He gave Sefer. Someone came and gave a Sefer Torah to his wife and said, "This is the get." If Yosef said that it's not a get, what it was? Sure, it's not a get. The chiddush is that you're not choshesh for the invisible ink.
Another chiddush, it could be other things. You give a lady a newspaper, write a get on it, and she has to find the get between the whole newspaper.
And it'll be kosher.
Right. Doesn't ruin it. There's other things on it. Fair enough.
But that wasn't a verse of chiddush. I mean,
But that's also a chiddush.
It's a chiddush to us in the sugi, but the verse said it's not. You're not choshesh for anything. That's not what he said.
Okay, fine.
But he's saying that it is a chiddush if someone gave a newspaper and has a bunch of other writing, and someplace over there on page 24, in the corner over there, there's a get. It's also a kosher get. Get your kosher shalom l'shma. Very love kol mislishma. What if somebody also about the writing? Okay. So he wrote a get that was written without not the shema, has all the right words, the right names, everything, but it was written not for her. And he writes it over again, black on black. Before we had a study about black on black, it's not considered writing.
Rewriting.
Writing over it, right? Writing over it. So before we had a study, it's not considered writing. Black on black is not considered. But here the Gemara says, for some reason, maybe the second one was the shema. The first writing was also good writing. It wasn't the shema. Maybe it's better If you write over it, on top of it, you write it again, Lishma, maybe it's good. So Rav Chisda said, if it was written Shalom Lishma, and he wrote over it, he took the quill over it, and he wrote Lishma, Machlokes. One of the Machlokes of the Rabbanan. We find such a Machlokes Lagabi a Sefer Torah, and will apply it also to get. What is there by Sefer Torah? Machlokes by Sefer Torah, that's good enough. Tanya. Areisha Yitzchak Lichtav as Hashem, V'niskav Lichtav Yehuda, V'tav V'loitav Bodali. A kid said he wrote Shem Hashem, Yudke Vavke, but he didn't do it L'Shem Hashem. What's the case? Because he thought that he's writing the name Yehuda, so he wrote without, they didn't have mind to have Shem Hashem, but he left out the Dalet by mistake. But then it comes out that it wasn't a mistake. He really was supposed to write Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yehuda is Yud Kei Vav Kei with a Dalet in between. He wrote Yud Kei Vav Kei, but he thought he's writing Yehuda, and he left out the Dalet by mistake, and it comes out that he got it right. So he goes to the Rav and says, I got it right. I was Avayomer, Yud Kei Vav Kei, El Moshe Leimo. And he was supposed to write Hashem's name, but he thought that he's writing Yehuda, and he really wrote Hashem's name. So the kids say he wrote Hashem's without the Shema. He wrote name of Hashem without the Shema. So this word is a dalet. The word letter. This is the letter dalet. He didn't put the word dalet. He didn't put the letter dalet. Dallas. That's how you spell the word dalet. That's how you spell the letter dalet. So a kitzer, he wrote Hashem Hashem without kavanah. Ma'aver of kumas and makacha. Rabbi says he should write over it. Write over it. Write it again. Write Yud Kei Vav Kei, black on black. It's not the greatest to have such kind of Shem Hashem that was written Shalom Lishma, even though you Makadosh it by writing it over. So the Gemara thinks, Rav Chisda said, the same thing applies to a get. If you had a get written Shalom Lishma, so write it over again, the names, write it again, Lishma. Maybe it's not a good comparison. The Bina is a Kelev Anveyu, Balaka. Maybe only over there by Sefer Torah they say it's not so good because it's supposed to be Muhuder. The Kelev Anveyu is supposed to make it beautify the mitzvahs. So therefore, it's not kosher because you wrote the Shem, not so Lishma. Even though you wrote over it and you did make it Lishma, it's not so good. But by get, there's no such thing. Maybe it's kosher, even according to Rabbanon.
Well, what did the Chachamim say? I see the words. What did it mean?
That it's not a Mufka means select. It's not a choice way of making Hashem's name.
So
the Shem.
Does that mean it didn't work, or did he have it?
So the Gemara seems to say that even with the evidence, it's not good. I'm not sure why. The words I would say like you. The words sound like it's not so nice, but the Gemara takes it to mean that it's possible, and therefore the Gemara by get also be possible. And the Gemara says maybe only by Sefer Torah because you have to have say Kelev Anveyu, and maybe also the Gemara means to say it's only Lachatchila not good. Maybe that's what the Gemara means. But over here by get, maybe it's kosher.
What was the first layer? What did he write with the first time down?
Yud Kei Vav.
No, but what did he write? Did he write?
He wrote Yud Kei Vav.
Regular.
But both are blacking,
Both
black on black. And even though the Gemara said before, black on black is nothing here to be Mekadosh, maybe it's to make it Lishma, maybe it does work. And the Gemara views Malchokes of Yehuda and the Rabbanan. And the Gemara says, even the Rabbanan here hold by get that it's kosher, only by Sefer Torah that you have to have Zakelev Anveyu over there is not good. According to what Al Gemara says, we should pass that it's good because Al Gemara ends off that even the Rabbanan say that it's okay by a get. Review the surely, and even Rabbanan say by Sefer Torah not by get, yes. But the Rambam says that it's possible, and they point out that there's another gear so that continues. Usually the Gemara will say two directions. Even the Rabbanan hold maybe that is good, and the Gemara says also another side, maybe even the Rabbi Yehuda hold that by get it's not good because you have to have creases, and it's not called a good creases if it wasn't made perfectly. So maybe everyone knows that it's not good, and that's how the Rambam says that it's not good. If you wrote it Shalom Lishma, it doesn't help to write it over again. New Gemara.
But I don't understand what the Oval Hachalo is.
By a get, it wouldn't be a problem. Even though
Oval Hacha with a get.
Right. New Gemara. I'm Rav Chisda. I could pass all the gitin. I have a way to say that all the gitin are possible. So it doesn't mean gitin are possible. Of course, there's such thing as a kosher get. But the way that they did it in his time is a problem in all the gitin. And Rabbi tries to guess what he meant to say, and he's saying that's not a problem. Only Rabbi, my time, what's your problem with all the gitin? The custom came to be that the woman used to pay for the get. Allah is that the husband has to pay for the get, and the custom came to be that the woman paid for the get. Rashi is not the Gemara Baba Basra that the reason why they did it is because it was taking the husband a long time that he has to pay for the get. He doesn't need the get; he can get married without a get, but the wife needs the get, so she would pay for the get. They made that the woman should pay for the get in order that it shouldn't be held back.
It shouldn't be.
So maybe Chisda said that's a problem that the woman's paying for the get. It's not giving his. She's paying for it as her get, and it's not his. So that's a problem with all the gitin. The regular way they do gitin nowadays is not good because it's not his money. But the Rebbe says that's not a problem. Maybe the Rabbanan gave the money to him. That means Hefker Bez and Hefker Rashi says, and the Rabbanan have the power to be able to transfer people's money. So they gave it to him. If the custom became to be that the woman pays for it, so she pays for it, and it's hers, then the Rabbanan gave it to him, and now it's his, and it's a kosher get. So that's fine. It shouldn't be a problem. What's another problem? That the custom was that they gave it on very cheap paper, whatever it was, and it wasn't worth a Shabbat Pruta. And maybe you might think, maybe after this you hold that it has to be worth something. Since it says V'nasan, it has to be something which is worthy. It's something significant. And they give it on insignificant things. Maybe that's the reason why you hold all the gitin apostle nowadays. No, Dilma Nasinas Geti. Maybe the word V'nasan doesn't mean that it has to be something significant. It just means that it should be a get. V'nasan, whatever the get means, he has to give to her. But there's no thing that has to be significant. And even though it's less than a pruta, there's no problem. I can prove to you that there's no problem because they stand from Eretz Yisrael that even if the get was written on a thing which is Aser Bana, is also kosher, even though Aser Bana means that it has no value at all. The get doesn't have to have any value. So there's no problem with the get. The gitin nowadays have no problem. You could write a get, a person can write a get even on something which is insignificant, and even if she pays for it, it does cost money, but even if she pays for it, it's also the money belongs to him. The Chachamim gave it to him, and it's a kosher get, so there's no problem with all the gitin. Once the Gemara mentioned, the Yevlamidi didn't give her anything, and the Gemara says maybe he doesn't have to give her anything. It doesn't have to be significant as long as he gives her a get. It doesn't have to be worth any money. As you see, that they sent from Eretz Yisrael that even if he wrote it on the Surah Yana, which has no value at all, it's still kosher. It doesn't have to be worth anything. Gufa, we just finished talking about this. Sholchum mitam, they sent from Eretz Yisrael. Tam is like Hassam. They sent from there. Kosfal Yisrael, I know kosher. Even if it's written on Yisrael, I know it's a kosher get. Amar Avashi, Afan Anami Tanina. We don't have to have Sholchum mitam. It's a mission. The mission says that doesn't have to be worth Shabbat Pruta. It says on the Allah Shal Zayis that if you wrote it on a olive leaf, it's kosher. An olive leaf is not a Shabbat Pruta. So you see that it doesn't have to be a Shabbat Pruta. But the Gemara says, no, this is a big chiddush. Dilma. Shani Allah Shal Zayis, the Chazi list Rufe. It's worth something. Allah Shal Zayis is not worth a Shabbat Pruta, but it's worth something. If you have a lot of olive leaves, you could. It could add up to a Shabbat Pruta. Thank you.
Said that it doesn't have to be Shabbat Pruta.
Yes, but the one I'm saying, you see a right from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says that it's Allah Shal Zayis. You see, you don't need a Shabbat Pruta. So why you have to have a chiddush from Shlochim Itam? The Mishnah says so. The one says
what does it mean that they're going to join them together?
that if you have many, it's altogether you can get a Shabbat Pruta out of them. If you have one olive leaf, it's worth a 20th of a Shabbat Pruta. But if you get 20 together, they could combine to become a Shabbat Pruta.
Well, that's not fair, is it?
What does fair mean?
The whole point of the Shabbat Pruta is what's it worth. Now,
Right.
what you're looking at one leaf.
Right, so it's
why
true.
can you say, oh, if I had 20, I'd have a.
Right, so it's another way of saying that it's true. You don't need a Shabbat Pruta, but maybe you need Shabbat something. It's true. You do prove that you don't need a Shabbat Pruta, but maybe you have to have Shabbat something. And from the Mishnah, you wouldn't see that. Maybe it has to have some kind of a value, even though it's not a Shabbat Pruta. Usually, the whole Torah lesson Shabbat Pruta is not considered significant. But maybe here, it has to be worth something, even though it's not a Shabbat Pruta. I can bring you a raya that even in Surah Hano, which is worthless, completely worthless, even if you have 1,000,000 of them, it's worthless. So then I have a bigger point. I'm making a point that not only it doesn't have to be a Shabbat Pruta, it doesn't have to be Shabbat anything. Good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rashi says, example, what are you going to use a lot of olive leaves for? Maybe it's good for animal food. Maybe it's good for a bedspread. If you get a lot of them, it'll be comfortable bedspread. Whatever the case
You
may
can't
be.
use it for animal food because it's being used as a get. You can't change it.
But no, we're just talking about olive leaves if it's worth anything. Okay, the Gemara continues.
That picture of yours is not good. It's only one.
No, we know
No.
it's one.
He gave her one leaf. He didn't give her a lot of leaves. The Gemara continues. Tanya, Rebbe Yomer, Kosval Yisura no kosher. Rebbe said, we learned in the Bryce that the Rebbe said that if he wrote a get on Yisura no it's kosher, we just finished saying that, Shochem Yitam is kosher. Nafak Levi, the Darsham made the Rebbe. Levi went out and he's publicized this halacha that a get is good on Yisura no. But local Suah, the people didn't praise it. The people didn't praise the statement of Levi. But then Mishmei the Rabbim, Vikil Suah, afterwards he said it over, not from Rebbe, he said it over Stam, that's the halacha. Everybody says so. The Chachamim say that you'd like to write a get on Isura no, and then we call Suah, and then everybody praised it. So we see the halachas like this halacha, the fact that Rashi says the fact that Levi went out of his way to say it again in a way that they should be accepted. When he said it in the name of a Yachid, people didn't accept it. Maybe only Rebbe holds like that. So he said it in a way that everyone should accept it. So you see that Levi holds that that's the halacha. So that's the halacha.
How do you say that it was, everybody holds it? What's the version?
Mishmei de Rabim.
Ah,
Well, because it could be just that it's stam. He said that it's kosher. He didn't say Dr. Rebbe says so. So everybody got the impression that everybody holds like that, and that's the halacha. No, he just said that halacha. He said the halacha is that it's kosher. He didn't have to say who said it. Tan Rabbanan, because of the lo b'chakav, that it says he should write a get, but not if it's engraved. If he engraved the get, it's not kosher. And the Gemara is going to go into the subject now: is engraving considered writing or not? If he engraved it on a wax tablet or whatever it might be, he engraved it. Is that going to be considered a kosher get or some kind of a tool that nowadays they have? They write and they.
Writing.
So maybe it is. Here it says because of a low chakak, it's not considered a good writing. They have when you engrave, you have all kinds of engraving on metal. They have some kind of machine that you can engrave. People will get the names. So here it says it's not a good get. The name of the chakika lav ksiva. You mean to say that engraving is not considered writing? You're a minu. Eved sheyatsa b'ksav shal gavi tavlo pinkis yatsa l'cheirus. If they gave a liberation document to an eved written on a tablet on a pinkis, that was a thing used that you engraved on with wax, probably. So it says it is a good get shechur. Avlo b'ksav shal gavi kippah ban duchteri. Rashi says if it was embroidered writing is not considered writing. That's an interesting thing, that even though the Gemara says engraving is considered writing, but embroidered is not. So as far as we're concerned, it says engraving is. So why is saying engraving is not? So this is a famous concept called chak tochos chak yirechos. Chak tochos means that if you engrave the actual letter, then it's okay. The way we would engrave is the regular way called chak yirechos, that you engrave the actual letter. That's kosher. What's the problem?
Right.
What? I'm right here.
Is not kosher.
That's what I said. Chak yirechos is kosher.
What is it?
Yirechos means the letter. You engraved the letter itself. That's kosher. If you took an engraving tool and you scratched out the letter, that's fine. But chak tochos is the opposite. Chak tochos is that you engraved all around and you left whatever's left. That's the problem. So if you engraved all around and left the letter is made of itself, that just happened. It wasn't pressed down. So then that's not good. So it depends. Chakika depends how you do it. If you do the letter itself, then it's kosher. Chak yirechos means the actual letter you pressed in or pressed up. That's kosher. But if you pressed the surrounding area and then the letter was made of itself, automatically that's possible.
Yeah. You can make a servitor out of
The problem with chak tochos by a sofer is that if he's going to use a knife to erase something in a way that now the erasing made the letter kosher, that's called chak tochos. So anybody that uses a knife in order to erase, so you have to make sure that you're not using the knife to make it kosher. You erase the whole thing, then you write it over again. But if you made something wrong and now you're going to use an eraser in order to make the leftover kosher, that's called chak tochos. That's possible.
Yirechos, we're saying like outlining, right?
No,
what is it?
I'm not sure what you mean by outlining.
I thought it meant we're outlining the letter.
No, I mean
Yeah, I thought that was
you
the one that
engrave.
was wrong. If you engrave the whole thing, that's
If
good.
you engrave the letter, it's good. What's not good is, I'm not sure if we're saying the same thing. If you
If you engrave like this and you make a vav, that would be
it's
writing.
kosher.
But if you engraved around it,
I'm not sure if
That's not what
it's
it
the way
was.
for engraving.
A tracing.
If you would use a press, like the way, right, they're mostly going to talk about printing, minting coins.
well, so what is Yirechos? What does it mean?
The word means the letter itself. How's Rashi?
Yirechos?
Of the letter itself. Any Rashi doesn't say. Rashi doesn't say the word Yorech. What? Shal osios. The Yorech of the osia. It means the leg, the thigh, the thing itself. Any article that has any translation on the word Yorech?
So what does it mean? It means you're stamping a stamp.
If you use a stamp in a way, let's say a minting stamp, that you have a piece of metal, and then
No,
what
like
do
in the old days, they had like to make a signet like on the ring.
a signet on the ring. So what would they do?
You have wax,
Yes.
and then you're going to press something in, and it's going to show the.
So it depends how that works. If you press the image that you want is pressed in,
Yeah.
that's chak yirechos. That's good.
Oh, I thought that's the bad thing.
That's the good one. When you let's listen of the example and see if that's what you're saying. If you
Okay.
have a coin, when you mint a coin, how do you mint a coin? I don't know how to do it nowadays, but if you have a piece of metal, a blank piece of metal, and now you have a kind of a stamp that's going to press everything out, down, And whatever's left
leave.
up, whatever's left standing, whatever is raised is the image that you want.
Yeah.
That's not good.
That's not good.
Because the
you
image was
didn't
made,
make it.
right, the image was made by itself, by pressing down all of the surroundings,
See,
the
negative.
image is made. So
But if you stamping down the letter, it is good.
that's kosher, right?
Then I got a question. When the original stamp was that upside down letter. Noah says you come out right on the,
We didn't talk about that case yet. I'm not sure what your,
Well, in order to to come out with the kosher letter through a stamping process, a printing process, you have to have it backward, it has to be backward in your hand.
I'm not sure which case you're talking about should be kosher. Which case is kosher that you want to attack? What's the kosher case
It's a
that you
letter,
attack?
I got the letter, right?
So
And
the letter is
I'm
straight.
writing, let's say a whole word, I wrote a whole word, Leman, okay, so.
So far we didn't talk about a stamp. I mean the stamp. Let's say you took
Well, so we
an
talked the
engraving
press.
tool, and you pressed into the wax or to the metal and you scratched out the writing. So
Okay,
that's
so-
good. You scratched it in. But if you scratched everything else
No,
in,
is that called writing?
that's what we said. That is kosher. That mechutz doesn't mean you can engrave as long as you do chok yirechos, don't do chok tochos.
Where's the color, where's
It
the?
doesn't have to have color. It's engraved. Engraving is also writing. You go to all of the places where they engrave, they say this is beautiful. Don't you see it's beautiful?
Not for saving. It's for saving.
We
Say
just
the
did it
has to have
for
yo.
our,
We're not talking about yo. We don't want to get.
For our cousin.
Oh, we're still talking about it.
What?
We just did it for our cousin. We
Oh.
got him a gevia.
I give you
Put his name
engraved,
on
and
it.
it costs a lot of
It's
money to
engraved,
do.
50
Yeah, it's
shekel.
engraved. Beautiful. Each letter,
That's called
each
writing,
letter,
right?
but yeah, that's what it says.
Shmuel Menachem.
Well, we're going over time. It's okay with everybody?
Yeah.
So that's what it says, that chok tochos is not good. The kasha is tochos lo is not good chok tochos, even if you push down everything else and left the letter of itself, is that not good? Verminu. It says about the tzitz. The tzitz,
I thought you just said that the chak tochos was good.
no,
not
chok
the
tochos
chak
is not good.
yerecho,
No, that's
is where
not
you
good.
push all around and it's
No,
not
that's the
good.
chok tochos, that's chok tochos. Chok yirechos is kosher, and that's where you press the letter itself. Chok tochos is the case where you pressed all around it,
Oh,
and it was left by itself. That's what's not good.
okay.
And the kasha is that not good? The tochos low for a minute. It says about the tzitz. The tzitz said it was a plate of gold, and it said Kodesh Lashem. It wasn't written with ink; it was engraved. Ichtav pituchei chosam, Kodesh Lashem. They had the words Kodesh Lashem, and it says that it was engraved. The Hoya Kostav Shokeya Elabole. There were letters of Kodesh Lashem were not. How do you say? Shokeya and Bole.
Indented,
Was that
Sunk-
good?
sunk
Good.
in
It was not a
and-
sunk in. It's not indented. It was the opposite of indented. It was.
sticking out.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was,
I'm sure there's a nice word, but sticking
how
out.
about embossed?
Extended.
Is it
and
embossed inside or outside?
Bole is sticking out. I think that's.
Garskill is not going to.
Protruded.
Protrude. Okay. And the other one is indented. Is that the word they used?
I would say set in. I'm not sure.
Embossed, I think
Depressed.
embossed is better.
Depressed or
Protruded.
protruding. So the letters of the tzitz were not. I'll use indenting. Was not indented, but it was protruding. Now, how do they do that? Gitin Rezav, the way they mint golden coins. Golden coins. It has an image or a writing that is protruding, not indented.
You could see on the on every
Yeah, every coin,
every shekel.
every coin. The same with our coins nowadays, that the writing is protruding. Now, how do you do that? Everybody knows. If you go to the minting press, the way they do it is that they, I mean, I don't know nowadays, but in those days, they do chak tochos. They may have a stamp that presses the metal down all around, and the image is left. That's called chak tochos, and it says that is a good for the tzitz. But then Rezav Tochos saying, and he's saying that's kosher, but it sits, and it says but it sits, it has to be written. So you see, chak tochos is good. The answer is the Rice doesn't mean that. Kedin Rezav, although Kedin Rezav, not exactly like the minted coins. It just means that the result. It just wants to tell an example of the result that is protruding, not that it's indented, but it does mean how you made it.
Was protruding?
Yeah, the letters of the tzitz, Kodesh Lashem was protruding.
Yeah,
And the Gemara says the way, how do you get that? The same way as the
as
coin.
the coin.
And the coin is made by chak tochos, that
Which
it presses
is good.
down, which is not good.
Huh?
Over there,
The coin, it was good. The coin is good.
kosher coin. What do you mean?
What is the remaining?
The
What is
kasha is that here the Brisa says the tzitz was written with the same way that the coins are. The
Oh, that
tzitz
sits.
was the same as the coins were,
I
and
see.
that means it's called. It's by tzitz says you should write,
And so it means.
and it means that chak tochos is good.
I see.
The answer is the Brisa doesn't mean that it was made the same way as the golden coins. It just means that the result was the same as the golden coins, that you have protruding letters, but it doesn't mean to do it the same way they make the coins. Kedin Rezav, although Kedin Rezav, like the coins and not like the coins. Kedin Rezav, the volate. Now that's meant to say that it should be like the coins, that the result is that the letters are volate, protruding. But below Kedin Rezav, not exactly. Neither was the way you did it was tochos and nocha yerechos. Here you have to do it in a way that it should be pushing the letter itself, not pushing the surrounding. How do you do that? Rashi says you have to go to the other side. You go to the other side and you push it out the letters. You push it out,
Oh,
and then
you turn upside down. And
Oh, you push the
hammer
metal
with a
out, you
little,
hammer out the letter.
right. And Chavrusa pointed out that you're this way. Maybe Chaim David meant at this point that you're going to be writing the letters with the mirror image. You're not going to write. You have to you're writing on the backside.
Backwards.
So you're writing it backwards, and that's a chiddush. Maybe that's called writing also. But the mice, when you look at it, you have protruding letters. This is Kodesh Lashem, and it was Chaki Rechos. It wasn't Choktos.
It looks like a coin, but it was done not like a coin.
Right.
how do we know that the sis had to be written?
Because it says in the pasuk that you should write.
Was it possible?
Forgot the beginning, but it says Mechtav Pituchei Chosam. We could open up on to see a second.
Oh, the bottom.
Let's open up the pasuk here. Mechtav Pituchei Chosam. Yeah. ויכתבו עליו מכתב פיתוחי חוסם קודש להשם.
Yeah.
יתקבעו עליו.
So it's called writing,
There you go. Yeah, that's- even though it was like
even though it was engraved.
engraved, smacked out the backwards.
Here it says פיתחת עליו פיתוחי חוסם, but in the pasuk we just showed it says over there ויכתבו עליו.
Pituche is from the word patuach, open.
I guess I don't know. Okay, so we find one pasuk where it says ויכתבו עליו מכתב פיתוחי חוסם קודש להשם, so it's called writing. Okay, we're mamish over time, so I guess we'll stop here, even though we're an Amud behind.
Say that, come to see him. Most you